hope this is working. Yes, it is. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this year, that is the RUSVM 2023 One Health Week / Research Day. This is an important event in the course of in our calendar, and it's 1 week which we celebrate the One Health Week, which is linked to our anchor, which is the approach which we do all things activities here, which is a One Health approach. And I'm glad to welcome also online our Masters in One Health. It's a residence week, so they've joined us online. So a special welcome to you all. The Research Day, I'll start with the Research Day. It gives us an opportunity to celebrate all that our faculty, staff, and students do to advance health care for all. And when we say health care for all, we have just seen 2 videos there emphasizing the One Health. So the One Health includes the animal health, the human health, and the environmental health. And for us here at Ross, in the process of this One Health approach, we also recognize the tenets of diversity, equity, and inclusivity. I want to thank all those who have responded to our call for posters for this event and 3-minute thesis presentations, which we will be seeing very soon, despite your busy schedules, and wish everyone participating in these different activities the best, especially in the competitions ahead. Our theme for this year is an appropriate one, is One Health, One Welfare. And we have in our program interesting discussions for the next 3 days, which include a broadcast from our eminent keynote speaker, Dr. Tembo Grandin. Dr. Tembo Grandin is for those who don't know, she is a best-selling author, an animal behaviorist, an autism self-advocate, and author of The Woman Who Thinks Like a Cow. If you haven't read that book, I encourage you to do so. I further invite you this week to panels of discussions later this afternoon and tomorrow on animal welfare issues entrenched in a One Health approach. Lastly, I would like to thank the organizing committee for their time and effort in coming up with this thought-provoking theme, One Health, One Welfare, for the 2023 One Health Week Research Day. Let's enjoy our achievement. Thank you very much.
All right, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. All right, so it's really good to see all of you here. Welcome once again. We are about to go into our 3-minute thesis competition. So basically, I just want to give a little bit of background. 3MT refers to the 3-minute thesis, where instead of writing a 80,000 word thesis, our participants get to present their work in 3 minutes. You might think it's impossible, but it is very, very possible. This competition was founded by the University of Queensland in 2008, and since then, over 900 universities in over 85 countries around the world have caught on and taken part in this competition. And this competition was started by Dr. Becker. She's seated in the second row in the middle in 2018. So thank you very much, Dr. Becker, for starting this initiative here at Ross. And since then, we've had 4 competitions. This is number 5. Now for our judges. Our judges are seated in the second row of the middle section, and you may notice that Dr. Becker is a judge. So we want to thank Dr. Becker, Dr. Claire Robinson, Dr. Hilary French, Dr. Don Bergfeld, and Dr. Alpier for consenting to judge this competition. Now, what are they looking for? So there's some criteria, and I'll just give you a little bit of what they will be looking for. So, did the speaker communicate how important their research is? It may be important to science, which they will communicate to you, but what they will also communicate is how important it is to each one of us. Now, was the speaker clear and easy to understand? Were you able to connect with them in what they were saying? Were they able to tell their story clearly and logically? Was the static slide, there's a static slide that will accompany their 3-minute talk. Was it clear? And did the slide enhance their presentation? I just introduced the judges, but I'm also going to invite each one of you to be a judge. We have a winner, we have a runner-up, which our judges will decide on, but we also have a People's Choice winner, and each of you will get to choose who that is. So we just want to first thank our 10 participants, 9 competitors, for taking time out of your busy schedules to come today to share your story with us. First, let's just applaud all of them and encourage them. And we'll just go right into it. Our first speaker to give her 3MT is Regina Kemper. She is a pathology intern who is also doing her master's here at Ross, with her supervisor being Dr. Bofa. And she will be presenting on her story called Unveiling Canine Cutaneous Hemangiosarcoma. Let's just welcome her on stage.
Picture this. You're petting with your dog, and then you feel a lump that concerns you. So you pick up Snowflake and takes him to the vet. After a careful examination, it is decided to remove that lump. It is sent to the lab, and after a few days, you got the result back. Cutaneous hemangiosarcoma. But what is that? How bad is that for my dog? How long does a snowflake has? So we know that hemangiosarcoma are tumors arising from the vascular endothelium. But what outcome can we expect from this animal? This will depend on something called the tumor biological behavior. The scientific community has proven that in some tumors, we can predict this behavior by looking at the morphological features of the cells in the tumor and grade them according to what the pathologists see in the microscope. So the grade is the predictor of the tumor behavior. To date, there is no validated grading system for the hemangiosarcoma in dogs. So what we are doing, we are looking at over 40 cases of dogs diagnosed with cutaneous hemangiosarcoma and trying to find a correlation between the outcome and the morphological features of the cells. If we can prove there is a correlation, we're gonna propose a grading system that can be later validated in a large study scale. But let a curiosity takes us a little bit further. What if we can prevent cutaneous hemangiosarcoma? To answer that question, we first need to understand what triggers and contribute to the genesis of this tumor. We know that dogs with low pigmented skin have higher chance to have cutaneous hemangiosarcoma, and that can be exacerbated when you live in a place with high UV light index, such as the island we are living in. But there's something else we would like to take a look at it. Can a microorganism contribute for the development of this tumor? In the human medicine, it is well established that intercellular bacteria named Bartonella can contribute for the development of this tumor. In 2020, there was a paper that came out and proved there was a relationship between the tumor and Bartonella. So we are doing molecular analysis to try to find if there is a correlation between the presence of Bartonella and the development of cutaneous hemangiosarcoma. This could be important steps towards maximizing effective strategies to prevent and to treat cutaneous hemangiosarcoma. Thank you.
3 minutes. Thank you so very much, Regina. Let's just applaud her once again. Now we have our next speaker, Ismael Perez Cordero. He is a second semester student. He's also a research volunteer working with Dr. Luis Pablo Hervé. So let's welcome once again Ismael to speak on Bok biosecurity.
Have you ever pictured the farm of your dreams? In my mind, I imagine a farm where productivity, sustainability, and environmental enrichment seamlessly coexist. Now, imagine St. Kitts holds the potential to become a model in sustainable chicken farming. The island holds many small-scale farmers that produce eggs year-round without the need of concepts normally used in industrial agriculture. However, there's a twist to this tale. A recent study found pathogens lurking in flocks all around the island. And right now, the main concern is disease control. What if I told you that the key to overcoming this challenge lies in biosecurity? Biosecurity is all about safeguarding animal health and preventing disease outbreaks. Using foot baths to clean your boots, or something as simple as washing your hands before entering the farm are great examples. Now, many of the farms don't even have access to water. And considering farm setup and scale, traditional industrial methods of biosecurity might not be the practical approach. This calls for a unique and innovative approach, one that not only ensures the health and safety of our feathered friends and farmers, but also promotes sustainability and resilience in agriculture. One Health considers the environment, animal health, and human health as a whole. And our approach is similar, promoting the use of environmental design, resulting in an efficient and sustainable strategy. We plan on visiting farms on which diseases were found. Our opening act, a targeted mission to assist the farms without access to water, kickstarting a rain harvesting revolution. Picture water as the unsung hero. It allows to clean feeders, water throws, and nests on a regular basis, while giving farmhands a chance to scrub in and out. But there's more to our grand strategy, a mission to conquer pathogens and enrich the lives of both feathered and two-legged residents while giving the environment a standing ovation. Each farmer becomes our partner, and together, we'll measure the impact of these moves by using production metrics and statistics. This isn't just problem solving. It's a harmonious symphony and the melody of sustainable farming for the world to dance to.
We are 2 people down. Thank you so much, Ismael, for your talk. I want to say very quickly, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Nicole Herbert, and I, along with Brittany over here, have been working with all 10 participants to prepare for this competition, and it has been a pleasure. So we'll go into our next speaker, Sierra Chiaramella. She is a 3rd semester DVM student who is also a research volunteer working with Dr. Sarah Hooper. She will be speaking to us on the topic, Neurophobia Unmasked, turning fear into fun with Legos. Let's welcome her.
By a show of hands, who here has ever played with Legos as a child? Majority of you. Awesome. They're great, right? They allow a spark of the imagination to build endlessly, giving us the basic foundation of learning. Now there's 4 different styles of learning: visual, auditory, verbal, and kinesthetic, also known as hands-on. And I'm sure everyone here today has their own preferred learning style. And these styles follow you for life, shaping you into the person who you'll eventually become. And a prime example of this is being enrolled in veterinary school, as you tailor your approach to learning and problem solving. So have you ever considered that Legos could be used as a tool to help students reinforce their learning in a veterinary aspect? I'd like you to hold on to this thought for a moment. One challenging subject in the veterinary curriculum is neurology. Just the name itself gives students this concept of neurophobia due to its complex, multidisciplinary nature. So how can we help students overcome this initial intimidation? Well, with the help of Legos. To understand how students learn to become practicing veterinarians, our project will consist of Lego tiger models with mobile limbs and other learning aids that probe at identifying the students' learning styles in a series of workshops. In these workshops, we'll ask a question about a subject such as neurology during the students' first 2 semesters here at Ross. And then a year and a half later, we'll check back in with them with the same line of questioning as they're developing and advancing in their neurological curriculum. By doing so, students will have the chance to optimize their learning experience and bolster their capacity for improved information retention. Our goal is to help students reinforce their education by providing additional opportunities for hands-on practice and engagement in subjects just beyond the standard curriculum, ultimately fostering a deeper understanding of the material. Now this goes hand in hand with the importance of educational research to inform the development of effective teaching methods, ultimately enhancing the quality of education and the future prospects of students. So if you know how someone learns, it's easier to set them up for success, right? So I'm sure as a pet owner, if you were placed in a situation where your pet needed medical attention, your only wish and desire at that moment is for whoever walks through that exam room door wearing a white coat has the knowledge to put your mind at ease and take great care of your pet. Ultimately, the effective application of learning styles can enhance the quality of care provided by veterinarians and contribute to positive outcomes for animal patients and their owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Sierra, for telling us the story of your research. Next, we have Pavli Fayek. Pavli is a 2nd semester DVM who is also enrolled 3rd semester DVM who is also enrolled in a master's by research. His supervisor is Dr. Chapwania, and he will be presenting his story on the title, under the title, Got Milk, Talking Dairy, Fertility, and Bacteria. Let's welcome him.
Around the world, there are 270 million dairy cows, and they produce 1.5 million tons of milk every day for all of us to enjoy our favorite cereal, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. By the way, if that's not your favorite, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Big as these numbers sound, though, the demand for dairy is actually only increasing, which means that our farmers have to have an optimized operation. The biggest limiting factor to milk production is cow fertility. You got more calves, you got more milk. But making that cute calf puts a lot of stress on their mother's repro tracts, and about 20% of dairy cattle are going to develop endometritis, or a bacterial inflammation of the uterus. Just like our GI tract, the uterus has resident or commensal bacteria, and the diversity profile of that bacteria can go from healthy to diseased. And now a diseased, inflamed, infected uterus, that's an infertile uterus, which means we got no calves and no, more like, no milk. Yeah? Currently, The only method of, oh, also, that's rather uncomfortable for the mother cows themselves. Currently, the only way of treating endometritis is by starting a course of antibiotics. But as future vets, some of us are already there, we know that prevention is better than treatment, and we are facing growing concerns of antimicrobial resistance. So how do you prevent a disease that takes place in the uterus? Well, here at Ross, we've already started looking for solutions, and we're working with the University of Zurich in Switzerland. What we're doing is we're taking intrauterine microbiome samples, and we're culturing those samples to identify the good, the bad, the ugly, and the fancy of endometrial bacteria. For bacterial identification, we're using a technique called shotgun whole genome sequencing, which means we take all the DNA of a sample, blast it to a bunch of tiny pieces, and then we take those pieces and compare them to a big database of DNA, which tells us not only the species that are present, but also which ones are equipped with the tools to take care of other bacterial populations. In the future, we can culture those bacteria from healthy animals and administer them to all of our cows. So instead of treating endometritis with an antibiotic, we can prevent it by giving them an anti-infection probiotic that will keep our animals disease-free and fertile. A win all around in my books. We got happy, healthy cows. They're making cute calves and milk. Oh, and that goes great with Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pavli. Next, we have our next speaker, Diana Mancuso, who is a 6th semester student, also enrolled in the Masters by Research program, and she is working with her supervisor, Dr. Ghosh. She will be speaking to us on the story, Monkey See, Virus Do.
How many of you have seen a monkey here on St. Kitts? Great, pretty much all of you. Now, how many of you have seen them maybe in your yards, stealing your fruit? Maybe even bothering your pets? How about in town as a tourist attraction? Yeah, that's a big one. These monkeys are everywhere. And in general, monkeys have been found to spread disease to humans. And this is what makes them so important. But would you believe that despite that, there's barely any information on the monkeys here on St. Kitts, especially when it comes to viruses. This is why my study is focused on characterizing the different viruses that are in the healthy African green monkey population here on St. Kitts, including adenoviruses. Now, many of you likely haven't heard about adenoviruses, even after the newfound fame that COVID-19 has brought to them. Adenoviruses are DNA viruses, which, like humans, viruses have DNA or other genetic material that allows them to invade the immune system and cause infection. Adenoviruses generally do not cause disease in immunocompetent individuals or healthy individuals, but they do have the potential to cause quite significant or even severe disease in immunocompromised individuals. This includes those that are young, old, or pregnant. So far, we have found that there is adenovirus circulating within the monkey population here on St. Kitts. Now you're probably thinking, why do I care? They're just monkeys. Well, we actually found that a portion of that adenoviral DNA is very similar to that of humans, suggesting a recombination event. This essentially means that at some point, monkeys and their adenoviruses and humans and their adenoviruses had some little mingling going on, and they exchanged a bit of their own. Kind of like taking a piece of an apple and replacing it with an orange. Now, this may not affect you directly, but it may affect those that are close to you, such as your children, your best friend who's about to have a baby, or your grandparents. Now, I know that sounds a little bit scary, but it really doesn't have to be. We can characterize these viruses, so we don't have to live in fear of what can be. So why don't we continue to look at these viruses so we can see what's out there? We don't have to live in fear.
we can protect those that we love and be prepared for whatever comes next. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Let's give another round of applause for those that have gone on so far. Next, we have Rebecca Zayas, who is a 7th semester student, also enrolled in her Master's by Research program. She is supervised by Dr. Navarrete. She'll be talking to us under the topic, Navigating Uncharted Waters, a Voyage of Diversity and Culture for Veterinary Students in St. Kitts. Let's welcome her.
Imagine someone you know did not get into vet school the first time they applied. What would your advice be to them? Try again, try a different option. Well, none of these options were the solution that Dr. Robert Ross had. His solution in response to his friend's daughter not getting into veterinary school was, why not just make our own? If only it were that easy. This is the trading ship used to relocate Ross University's School of Veterinary Medicine from the island of Dominica to St. Kitts. This ship represents a transformative journey for veterinary students, immersing them in the culture of a different country. With our study, we are examining the association between social identity, diversity awareness, and the impact of cultural immersion among veterinary students studying abroad in St. Kitts. To achieve this objective, all preclinical veterinary students were invited to participate in a modified questionnaire. This survey explored students' openness to diversity by looking at different demographics such as age, race, ethnicity, etc. We also conducted interviews with students to gain deeper insights into their experiences with the local community. These interviews provided us with valuable firsthand accounts that enriched our understanding of students' perspectives, specifically relating to cultural immersion in St. Kitts. As this is an ongoing study, we hope to reveal key findings that will show us how these experiences are developing students to become more culturally competent veterinarians. As we journey on to the next phase of our analysis, we are enthusiastic about the potential impact and significance our study will have in the field of veterinary education, specifically relating to other island schools. By examining the link between social identity, diversity awareness, and the impact of studying abroad, we can better enhance students' experiences here on island. These unique experiences that students encounter here provide them with valuable lessons that extend beyond the classroom. Just as this boat symbolizes the transformative journey of Ross, our study strives to shed light on the transformative journey of students encountering these different cultural experiences that they encounter here. Through this understanding, we hope to contribute to a future where students become equipped with the professional and cultural competence necessary to navigate the complex world of veterinary medicine. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Rebecca. Next, we have Carla Joseph. Now, Carla is a 5th semester student who also is enrolled in a Master's by Research program, and her supervisor is Dr. Sagabanazi. She will be presenting her story under the title, Platelets. Are they the solution to extinction? Let's welcome her as she comes.
What if I told you that in some parts of the world, donkeys are used similarly to dairy cattle for milk production? Would you believe me? There's a picture of a donkey milk face mask for those of you who don't. What if I also told you that they're becoming extinct? I know it's hard to believe because of where we live, but it's true. Due to the advancements in agriculture and transportation, the need for donkeys is decreased, leading to a decrease in their population and in turn putting multiple breeds at risk of extinction. However, donkeys still have a variety of uses worldwide, being used for work, milk, and even as pets. All of these uses has led to an increase in their demand, but due to the high risk of extinction, the world is having a really hard time keeping up. The use of cryopreservation, also known as semen freezing, and artificial insemination, or AI, is a good modality to preserve endangered species and increase populations due to the ability to store genetics well past the lifetime of the male that supplied them. This allows conservation programs to breed female donkeys, known as jennies, with these genetics and repopulate the endangered breeds, increasing the worldwide demographic of donkey populations. Simple, problem solved. Not quite. Nobody can seem to get donkeys pregnant using frozen semen, and it's not the semen's fault. I know, it doesn't make any sense because mares present fair to excellent fertility rates when bred with frozen semen. Now, although horses and donkeys share similarities that even allow them to produce hybrids, they also have key reproductive differences. It is hypothesized that this poor fertility rate in jennies is associated with an aggravated post-breeding uterine inflammatory reaction when bred with frozen semen. Okay, fine. So why don't we use anti-inflammatory drugs such as NSAIDs? Long story short, NSAIDs don't work for breeding purposes. So what we're trying to do is to mitigate this adverse inflammatory reaction using a biological therapy known as platelet-rich plasma to keep the uterus happy so it doesn't evacuate the embryo. Platelet-rich plasma, or PRP, is a whole blood plasma with an increased concentration of platelets. It is used in a multitude of human and veterinary medical conditions, including reproductive disorders associated with inflammation. We hypothesize that by doing an intrauterine infusion of PRP after AI, it will mitigate this inflammatory reaction early on and improve fertility rates of donkeys bred with frozen semen. More pregnancies means more babies, and more babies increases populations and therefore increases the worldwide demand of donkeys. Not to mention, more babies brings more milk.
Thank you, everyone. Let's have one more round of applause for Carla. So next, we want to welcome our next speaker, Isabella Liberti. She is doing her master's by research with her committee, Dr. Bergfeld, Dr. Shu, Dr. Machado, and Dr. Herve. And the title of her speech is Decoding the Language of Animals.
If we smile when happy, if a dog wags its tail when it's happy, then what do animals like frogs, chickens, or donkeys do when they're happy? In fact, how can we assess the emotional state and well-being of animals other than dogs or cats? Assessing animal behavior can be challenging, but not quite impossible thanks to ethograms. An ethogram is defined as a list of all the observed behaviors in a particular animal species. Once an ethogram for a certain species is formulated, it can then be utilized via quantitative analysis. This involves observing a species for a certain time period while tallying the frequencies and types of behaviors that have occurred. Behaviors are grouped into categories such as explosive, fearful, or affiliative. And once tallying is completed, the most commonly occurring behavior category is determined, which can give us answers as to how that animal was feeling during the time of observation. Here at Ross, our current curriculum consists of student-donkey interactions. But what if I told you that we rely on horse ethograms when working with our donkeys? Now, when we take a closer look at horses and donkeys, we realize there are key evolutionary differences that molded donkey behavior to be unique. Unlike horses, donkeys evolved from environments where resources were scarce, which makes them quicker to activate a fight response if unable to flee, while horses are quicker to activate a flight response. Now, past research shows us that horses respond best to negative reinforcement, while donkeys respond best to positive or neutral reinforcement. So if these two species have highly relevant differences in the ways they behave, then why does no ethogram exist specifically for the donkey? My project involves training donkeys using different methods of reinforcement to develop and further establish a donkey-specific ethogram. Why should you care? Ethogram use affects the success of training, the efficiency of working animals, veterinary medical work, adoption success in shelters, and even the average pet owner. If we can't formulate or have legitimate published ethograms for each species we work with, then we are truly lacking fundamental knowledge that could be causing us to potentially fail in more ways than one. If people could be misinterpreting donkey behavior, what other species are we making this mistake with? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Let's give it up for Bella. So next up, coming to present is Catherine Yandel. She is a fourth semester student as well as a research volunteer working with Dr. Silkworth. She will be talking with us today about preventing preventative toxicity in felines.
What is routine? Maybe it's your daily schedule, or how you make your morning coffee, or really any repeated activity that doesn't take much thought. Who here gives their pets monthly preventatives? Good, yeah. Have you ever read through the label or investigated the drug products you're given? I mean, probably not, right? It's routine. We don't really need to think about it. Well, heartworm preventatives, like HeartGuard and Simparica, contain drug substances called macrocytic lactones, or MCLs. Under normal circumstances, these drugs are removed from the body by protein pumps encoded for on the ABCB1 gene. Herding breed dogs are predisposed to a mutation in this gene. This results in pump dysfunction and drug accumulation in places like the brain. Clinically, this manifests as neurological sensitivity to a variety of drugs, one of which being MCLs. In 2015, Washington State University conducted the first study that identified this mutation in cats. They created a research group consisting of cats with a history of neurological reactions to their monthly preventatives. DNA sequencing was done, and it revealed a 5% prevalence of this mutation in their tested population. Later studies further supported this. The research that we are conducting here at Ross takes this a step further. Using a prospective study design, we are able to track MCL adverse reactions as they happen. For 2 to 3 days following application, our cats are closely monitored for any neurological side effects as their DNA is sampled and sent to the lab for analysis. This study design allows us to draw more definitive conclusions on the relationship between these variables while also creating a prevalence ratio among the cats of St. Kitts. Studies suggest this mutation is prevalent in 5% of any group of felines worldwide. While that may not sound significant, 5% of the global owned cat population is equal to almost 19 million. The image you see here is constructed of about 50,000 pixels. If we consider each square as a positive cat, we would need 380 of these images in order to accurately represent the at-risk population. A bit more significant, right? So why don't we talk about it? With the importance and frequency of MCL use, why does this mutation remain so under-researched? That's what we hope to change. We do not risk to discourage the use of preventatives or make it seem like every cat will be affected. Our goal is by bringing our findings to the public, we can better prepare owners should these adversities arise in their own pets. This condition is not preventable, but It is manageable with appropriate product knowledge and acknowledgement of the hidden risks surrounding routine animal care.
Thank you, thank you. So next up, we have our final presentation from our postdoctorate fellow, Ronan Winston. He is going to be presenting the talk, I like big data and I cannot lie.
Imagine a world where we can decode the secrets of life hidden within our DNA. A world where we harness the power of big data to unlock the mysteries of disease, evolution, and more. This world is not the realm of science fiction, it's in the realm of bioinformatics. Bioinformatics is the use of biology and computational science. It's about turning the A's, T's, C's, and G's in our DNA into more meaningful information. But why should you care? Well, first, bioinformatics advances scientific knowledge. Upon a new disease or outbreak occurring, bioinformaticians analyze the genetic code to determine its origins, develop treatments, and hopefully vaccines. Second, bioinformatics advances the microbial world. Each of us contains trillions of microbes, collectively contributing more than 2 pounds of your body weight. I try to determine what those bacteria are doing and what those bacteria are. This can improve animal health. It can reduce antibiotic use and antibiotic resistance. Third, bioinformatics advances agriculture. By analyzing with our increased population, we need to feed more people with fewer resources. By analyzing the genomes of cattle, we can improve production by simultaneously decreasing our greenhouse gas emissions. But how can these grand ideas happen? Bioinformaticians can be the key. If you imagine your DNA is a puzzle like this, only billions of letters long, I use computational tools to analyze this puzzle, solve it, and ultimately identify what genes or pieces are causing the disease. I also use computational tools to identify mutations in the reproductive tract of cows and bulls. So the next time you see a breakthrough in science, think of the bioinformatician working tirelessly behind the scenes to improve our understanding of these diseases. We are the puzzle solvers working tirelessly to advance our knowledge and ultimately improve our world. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Let's give it up for Ronan and give it up to all of our fantastic presentations today. Thank you.
Okay, so the QR code is there for everyone, for you online, for people in the audience. Please scan your QR code, vote for your favorite 3MT presenter. I do believe we've got some lunches up at the back, so you're able to take a little moment, but don't go away. Are you ready for Dr. Temple Grandin? I don't think you can take the excitement anymore. We've got a good research day for you today. Well, she wasn't able to come in person. However, we did have an interview. Please do move around, get some lunch, and we'll hit play. So we did do a recording with Dr. Grandin, and we'll play that for you. All right.
Temple Grandin, professor of animal science, and I have worked in many years, more years. Temple Grandin, professor of animal science, and I have worked in animal welfare for many years, more years than I want to tell you. And I started out working on improving the welfare in the slaughter plants. and I developed a very simple scoring system for slaughter plants. Because to apply welfare assessment in the field, it has to be simple. So we measured. Temple Grandin, professor of animal science, and I have worked in animal welfare for many years, more years than I want to tell you. And I started out working on improving the welfare in the slaughter plants, and I developed a very simple scoring system for slaughter plants. Because to apply welfare assessment in the field, it has to be simple. So we measured efficacy of study, how many cattle were rendered unconscious with the first shot, fully unconscious when hung on the rail. We measured vocalization, mooing in cattle during handling in the stunning area, and screeching in pigs right in the stunning restrainer. And if you have animals vocalizing in the restrainer, something's wrong. It's either electric prods, gates slammed on them, too much pressure from a restraint device. And vocalization scoring works really well in cattle and pigs. It does not work in sheep. And then I branched out, started working on measuring some of the other animal welfare on the farms. Well, and I forgot, back to the slaughterhouses. We also measured electric prod use and slipping and falling. Now, out on the farm, we need simple measures for assessing welfare. Let's start with dairy cows, because they're one of the easiest ones. Body condition scoring, and you need nice pictorial scoring charts. Lameness scoring. There's many good videos online to score lameness. Swollen joints and dirty. I mean, welfare is going to be poor if they're filthy dirty. And when I go and check a day, the calves should be clean. If I find calves, baby calves that are dirty, an audit's going to get failed very quickly. And the reason you need to measure things, let's take lameness, for example. When I measure it, I can tell, am I getting better on lameness, or is it getting worse? You manage the things that you measure. Because if you don't measure it, then the dairy producers tend to underestimate by half. And then we would do similar things for chickens. I just was out doing broiler chickens, and we look at lameness, we look at deads, we look at are the birds clean. It's really important to keep animals clean. Now, one of the advantages of having good animal welfare is you're also going to have better health. Another very important part of welfare on the farm is handling. If animals are handled gently and quietly, no screaming and yelling, dairy cows will be more productive, pigs will have more piglets, and animals will have lower fear. If I go into a dairy and the cows run away, the stockman is probably being rough with the animals. So good handling is really important. Also, it makes handling of cattle safer. But on the other hand, health alone is not sufficient for welfare. There's situations where you can have laying hens stuffed in little tiny cages where the bird can't stand up straight. Chickens normally walk like this, but in some of these small cages, the laying hen's not able to do that. They may be healthy, but their welfare is just terrible. Pigs in really barren environments where they've got nothing to chew on, probably reduced welfare. One of the big issues in pigs is sow gestation stalls, where the pregnant sow lives most of her life in a box where she can't turn around. I call it living in an airline seat. Imagine if you lived in an airline seat. Yep, they're going to bring you food to you. You've got headphones, you've got entertainment, but you can never walk in the aisle, and you spend your entire life in an airline seat. Yep, well, seat number 35E in the back of the plane, and all three people in front put the seats back. That was one miserable flight. But that's kind of what it would be like. I like to make analogies. And some of these very restrictive housing, like sow gestation stalls and the really small battery cages, those need to be changed. And there's a lot of different systems that you can use for group housing for pigs. But you also have to have the right genetics. There are some lean lines of genetic pigs that are very mean, vicious fighters. They will not work in group housing. The other big issue is sustainability in animal welfare. It's more sustainable if I have fewer cows and more milk, fewer hens and more eggs, fewer broiler chickens and more meat. But there's a point where if I push them too far on productivity, it's like a bridge breaking. The whole biological system gets overloaded. So what we have to do is think optimal. I do a lot of consulting companies in the US, very heavy broilers, huge amounts of breast meat. And one of the things they learned is that if you back off a little bit on the breast meat, maybe 2%, very, very, very small amount, then deads and other problems will go down. So you don't have to go back to the slowest growing birds. But what you may have to do is just back off a little tiny bit on the milk production. Because the first service AI conception for dairy cows is horrible. Horrible. Beef people, when I tell them that, they just go, ah, that's terrible. So maybe we just back off a little bit on the milk production, and then they're going to be easier to breed back. Everything takes energy. I like to look at genetic selection of animals like a national budget. And if I put my total national budget into the economy, that would be a high-producing dairy cow, super high producer, high-producing broiler chicken into the eggs, then I may take away from the infrastructure, the skeleton, the bone, the reproduction, the heart. There's been recent problems in Angus cattle with lameness and heart failure, and it has to do with over-selection for meat. And I think this is a similar problem with the dairy cow. You also have another part of the animal, the immune system, the military, and it requires energy to operate. We're breeding disease resistance out of the animals. I get worried about it. So what we have to look at is what's optimal. We want a very productive animal, but if you overdo it, it's like a bridge breaking. And all of a sudden, the whole system breaks down. I call it biological system overload. And sometimes this can happen slowly and you don't realize how bad it's getting. One of the reasons why I notice it is I get out and I see animals in many different places. Like, for example, when they started breeding lean-line pigs and having problems with lameness in certain boar lines, I'd go out to the local meatpacking plant and I'd see pigs from 10 different farmers in adjacent pens. And then it was obvious, the difference between the different genetic lines, and they all came out of similar buildings. So those are just a few things. Another thing I want to tell students is get out and try lots of stuff. You are the leaders of tomorrow. We need to find practical solutions to problems. Get out in the field and look at stuff. One person may try dairy cow medicine and just love it. Somebody else might hate it and want to do pets instead. So go out and do lots of things. Figure out what you like doing, because it's very important to have a career that you like. Another thing that will make you effective in bringing about constructive change is just writing practical articles on how to do stuff. Like when I started out with cattle handling, I just wrote articles on how to handle cattle, how to design corrals, just good practical how-tos, and I wrote a lot of them. Well, yeah, that's really good, and I want to see students go. You've probably seen some of my books. This is my slaughter book. You probably have that, and I have Improving Animal Welfare, Practical Approach. And then I've got a new book. It's the Grandin papers. It's kind of big and heavy, but it's all of my most important journal articles, starting from my very first scientific paper to the grazing papers in there.
Yes, the questions that I have for you, Dr. Grandin, were some that were submitted by the student body.
Okay.
So the first one is, how has popularity or media attention affected your career, and what are the pros and cons for you being in the spotlight with your work?
Well, one of the big things that really put me in the spotlight was the HBO movie Temple Grandin. And one thing really good about that movie is it showed how my visual thinking helped me to understand animals. I'm an extreme visual thinker. And people ask me all the time how I like all this attention I get at airports and places like that. And I said it's a responsibility. And and we've got to start working on handling animals right. As I mentioned before in the previous questions, I'm very concerned about some of the excessive breeding for single traits, whether it's meat traits or milk, more milk in a dairy cow, or more speed in a racehorse. or extreme features in pet animals, there's a point where we have to back off on that because it's really impairing animal welfare. Right now, there's a whole bunch of horses dropped dead in Kentucky. That sort of stuff is not okay. And my specialty is handling, and we breed too much for meat or we breed too much for milk. I think with lameness has gotten worse. And in order to have really good low stress handling, I've got to have animals that can walk. And the other thing that I've done with all the media attention is I've done a lot more Zoom calls. I've done a lot more speaking engagements. I want to really encourage students today. I'm in my 70s now, and I want to encourage students to go out and make positive change. You are the leaders of tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it's really important. You know, there's a couple programs here at school where students can actually try and be pretty involved in trying to work with the local community and educate the public. So I definitely agree that that's something a lot of that school should be focusing on with their students. Is there a specific instance that stands out to you where the media attention has had a significant specific impact on your career at all?
Well, it certainly got me a lot more speaking engagements, and I've tried to use that in a really positive way. I still do a lot of writing. One thing I recommend to students to make change take place, write about something. You do something that was really good, a good handling method, or a good welfare program, or some other thing, write about it. Write about it in the professional veterinary publications, but also write about it just like in cattle magazines, and on blogs and on online stuff, TikTok or whatever, where you just explain how to do things right. How do you do things right? That's what you need. That's what you need to explain, and try to keep the politics out of it. Just explain, well, this is how you handle cattle, or this is the proper way to design a cubicle for dairy cow so she'll stay clean and not have swollen joints. Just practical stuff like that. Put it out there.
Yeah, thank you for that advice. I definitely think a lot of us take for granted that we're so immersed in the animal world that we forget that things that we think are common knowledge may not be for everybody else.
Well, let's just talk about some of the stuff we've done in beef quality assurance. Just really simple things like not giving injections in the rear end of the animal because it wrecks the meat. And we've had big programs here with our cattle association on beef quality assurance. Well, I went out in some of the back country, and that information still wasn't reaching some of the people. You know, we still have to educate. And it was doing a better job of reaching feedlots that are closer to the meat plants than some of the small ranchers. But then let's write in some of their local magazines, write on blogs, write on things that they're looking at. I find we still always have to talk about basics. You know, people will say to me, well, Temple Grandin just talks about the same old stuff, like non-slip flooring. Well, in the last year and a half, I've been shown 4 pictures, plus I've also seen brand new facilities with glass smooth floors where your animals are going to be slipping and falling. And this is real recent stuff, that people are still making mistakes, making the concrete too smooth in a handling facility, and cattle are falling down. I find I still have to talk about those basics, along with always add some new stuff to it too. But we still have to keep talking about basics.
All right. The next question that was submitted by the student body was, do you have any advice for veterinary students with autism, and could you also provide general advice for neurodivergent students as a whole?
Well, I had a terrible time with math, and I'm very concerned that in some veterinary schools, the amount of math requirements, like algebra and things like that, are keeping out some neurodivergent students that are very good veterinarians. And the work that I did with cattle did not require algebra. We have a very beautiful place in Denver where you can watch some stray cats and dogs looking through a window and looking from a video camera that looks right down into it. And I'm watching this meticulous operation being done super carefully, and I'm going, what does algebra have to do with spaying this cat? Yes, there's a little bit of math that you're going to need for drug dosing. Arithmetic you have to know, drug dosing you have to know, but a whole course in algebra, how about maybe geometry, or maybe accounting, or practical math? I'm concerned that some of the visual thinkers like me are getting screened out, and you need us. That's the thing. I'm worried about that. Another thing that will help a lot of people that are autistic is when you give instructions to somebody, don't just give them long strings of verbal instruction. I have a hard time remembering that. Instead, a task that involves a sequence, write down a pilot's checklist with bullet points of the steps for the procedure. Let's say for doing a lab test, for example. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and you write it up like almost like PowerPoint slides or like a pilot's checklist. Because I'm one of these people that needs an external working memory. That would help a lot of people that are autistic, dyslexic, is written instructions in a pilot's checklist or bullet point format.
Yes, I do understand that. I myself have ADHD, and I have to write everything down or I forget it within 5 minutes.
Yeah. That's what I do too, especially when it's like steps for something like a laboratory test.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have to write down the steps.
Okay, so yes, maybe changing the requirements for math and making instructions more explicit for students.
And then whatever algebra might be needed for drug dosing, that can be memorized. But I think one of the reasons why the algebra is being pushed is I think some people that are more mathematically inclined think you need algebra to think logically. That is not how a visual thinker thinks. And I have a new book out called Visual Thinking, The Hidden Gifts of People Who Think in Pictures, Patterns, and Abstractions. And I don't think with algebra. I just see solutions to problems. And there's 3 kinds of thinking styles. There's visual thinkers like me, which the HBO movie shows really well. There's mathematical thinkers, and mathematical thinkers think in patterns. That's called visual spatial. And then you have your word thinkers. And I go through a whole lot of research, and I'm worried that we're screening out our object visualizers that may be some of the best veterinarians, especially when you've got an animal and you can't figure out what's wrong with it. The visual thinker that has lots of clinical experience will often figure that out.
Very interesting. How has COVID and online screening learning affected students in general, and especially students who may be on the autism spectrum?
Well, I think a lot of people need to be getting back into the office, and we need to have a certain amount of face-to-face communication. I don't know if you read that the Nobel Prize for the Moderna vaccine, one of the reasons why they won it, and one of the researchers had a ton of grant applications rejected, is that she met the right doctor in that copier room, in the office.
Wow.
They would not have won that Nobel Prize if they had not met in the copier room. This is one of the reasons why you need to go back into the office. And maybe go back into the office less, but there needs to be, especially in research situations, a certain amount of mingling in the office, because you just learn things, you make connections with people you're just not going to make online.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of corporations want to get people back in the office for about 3 days a week, but also there's a ton of empty office space, and some of it's getting converted into apartments.
Have you seen any positive outcomes or strategies that have emerged for supporting students with autism in online learning environments?
Well, let's just talk about all learning environments. The big mistake I see with autistic students, and even with some of your regular students, is when they get into trouble in a course. Like when I failed my first math quiz, I got tutoring.
Mm-hmm.
I had to be tutored in 3 different math classes, and the big mistake they make is when they fail that first quiz, they fail to ask for help. They need to ask for help when they start to have a problem with a class. Do not wait until you've failed the class. That's the number 1 problem that I've seen with some of the neurodivergent students. They don't ask for help quickly enough.
Have there been any noticeable differences on the academic performance of both neurotypical students and those with autism in online learning versus traditional in-person classes?
I don't think anybody's really studied that. I mean, some autistics do really well with online learning. Mm-hmm. You know, they'd actually prefer to have all their classes online. But okay, if you're going to be a veterinarian, you do have to learn how to interact with clients, and yes. You're not going to learn that online.
Okay. And then the last question that was submitted to me by the student body was, how has the scientific community grown for people with disabilities since you've started your career? And in your opinion, what still needs improvement?
Well, I worked with a lot of neurodivergent autistic people and dyslexic people that are undiagnosed. I have equipment I've designed that's out in the big beef plants. I worked with people that owned metalworking shops that were definitely autistic. I know I can think of 2 of them right now. They have lots and lots of patents. They've invented mechanical devices. They built equipment for me. And one of the problems I'm seeing now is those people are retiring. They're not getting replaced because we too many kids are not doing enough hands-on things like building things. These individuals that were very successful, they'd taken a welding class in high school, or they had grown up working on cars. And they were neurodivergent, undiagnosed, but they learned how to work at a really early age. That's something I'm seeing with too many autistic kids getting overprotected, and they're not learning working skills, which are very different from academic skills. Even young kids around 11 need to start learning how to do a job where somebody outside the family is the boss. And a real simple one is walking dogs for the neighbors, or taking care of pets, or taking care of the neighbor's garden, where you're working on a schedule for somebody outside the family. That needs to start young. You know, you can help out at the vegetable stand, you know, things like this. You just find these opportunities in the neighborhood.
And what important skills do you think that kids are being taught starting work so young?
They're being taught how to be on time, do the task the way they are instructed to do it. Like, for example, if that dog, they want a 15-minute walk for that dog, then they've got to do a 15-minute walk for that dog. Mm-hmm. Or if they're at a vegetable stand, they need to be there at certain hours and sell the vegetables and talk to customers.
What are some common misconceptions or barriers that still exist for individuals with disabilities pursuing careers in the sciences?
Well, you know, Stephen Hawking had very severe disability. He's the famous mathematician. Yes. And what Stephen Hawking said right before he died, he said, concentrate on the things, your disability does not prevent you from doing well. And Stephen Hawking could do mathematics in his head really well. That's what he excelled at. Let's find something that the person with a disability can do super well. There are some autistic people that are super good at computer programming. These are the mathematical minds. And then there's visual thinkers like me that are good with working with animals and good with mechanical things and designing stuff. The other thing I learned is when you're weird, the way I sold jobs was to show samples of my work. I would show off my drawings. I'd show off pictures of jobs. I'd show samples of my work.
How do you think the scientific community as a whole can work to ensure that future generations of scientists with disabilities have more opportunities and support than they do today?
Okay, a lot of these questions are very, very, very generalized. I'm a bottom-up thinker, so I tend to think of a specific examples. I'm thinking of the people that owned metalworking shops that built equipment for me. They had very successful businesses. And I can think of 2 of them that were very autistic. One of them stuttered, and he started displaying his equipment at small trade shows. That's how he started out. I have to be somewhat vague about the equipment because they're not formally announced that they're autistic.
Okay, yeah, that's no worries. All right, well, those were all of the questions that I had. Thank you so much, Dr. Grandin.
All righty, well, I hope that's given you some good things. I have lots of information on Grandin.com. Just my last name, Grandin.com, and then TempleGrandin.com is my autism webpage.
All right, thank you. I'll be sure to share that.
Okay. All right, I guess we'll go on and answer the autism questions now.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. I did want to point out to you, Dr. Grandin, the statement at the bottom there, which was a comment from the students that says, thank you so much for all the work and advocacy that you do. You truly are a pioneer for those with disabilities, visible and invisible in this field. And I think that was a really poignant statement that came from one of our students that is important to highlight.
I want to thank that student for that statement. I want to really thank him for that.
Okay, so thank you all for your attention here. Now we are moving on to, well, there'll be more from this interview actually. That was just a taster. So more of the interview with Dr. Eric Peterson tomorrow at the evening symposium from 4 till 6. And there'll be, that's part of the next 4 hours rescue, rehabilitation, release and research. So join us here tomorrow at 4. But the moment you've been waiting for, well, I don't know. There's been so many highlights of today.
All right, everyone, thank you. This has been a really fantastic afternoon, and I just want to take a moment to once again thank all of our competitors who have joined us. I want to thank our judges who are here. I want to thank all of the supervisors working with these students on their research. This is a great opportunity highlighting all that fantastic work. And in particular, I want to thank someone who has started the 3MT tradition here at Ross. If we can please very quickly welcome Dr. Anna Becker to the stage. Thank you, Dr. Becker, for all of your efforts here. I know you're moving on to the next adventure, but you've left a long-lasting mark here at Ross, and you'll always be appreciated. So thank you very much.
I got the opportunity to say a few words. I'll keep it less than 3 minutes. Thank you very much for your support, but moreover, I would just like to see this tradition to be continued, because I think it's wonderful to see our students stand up, talk about the research, and convey their enthusiasm to everybody. Thank you.
All right, so on to the announcement of the winners. We would like to invite Dean Callanan onto the stage.
All right, so I'm very excited to present the People's Choice. I will say it was a very, very close competition, but if we could, hold on then, I'll go to the runner-up. All right, so if I could welcome the runner-up, please, Pavli Fak with his wonderful presentation.
All right, so we are about to announce the winner of the 3MT competition 2023, and that person is Isabella Liberty. And now for the People's Choice. You all voted, and you voted the winner to be Pavli Fayek. I didn't mention what the prizes were, but our winners are getting some money so they can go to a conference to present their work that's being done here at Ross on an international stage. So that is quite fantastic. And we want to congratulate the 3 winners once again. And we also want to say to all 10 of the participants, thank you so much. Congratulations. You are all winners in our books, given the fact that you were able to come here and share your research in a creative and interesting way in 3 minutes. And we want to thank all of you online and in person for coming, for joining, for being patient, for cheering everyone on. Fantastic job, everyone. And have a great afternoon.
And there are prizes for everyone. So all of our competitors, thank you so much for being involved. To our trainers, Nicole, Brittany, everyone, our dean for making the presentations, thank you. And don't forget, Research Week continues later today, 4 p.m. You can join us online or in admin conference room for the One Health Global Exchange, Pest, Pet or Provider, and that's Perspectives of the Donkey Dilemma. And remember, these events are really to bring together our online master's students together with our campus. So really do come out, get involved, make them feel part of the campus. And then tomorrow evening symposium, the Q&A continues with Dr. Temple Grandin being interviewed by Dr. Eric Peterson, and the 4 R's are the rescue, rehabilitation, release and research. So that's tomorrow 4 to 6 here. And don't forget to go and see the posters that are on display in the Don Smith study space. You can vote for your favorite poster. The link closes as QR code up on the boards. The link closes tomorrow 1 p.m. And it's also your place to sign up if you want to be an RA or an RV. So thank you. Thanks to you, the audience, and to all of our participants and organisers. Thank you.